Hello, dear viewers. Let's get acquainted. Write in the comments where you are watching me from. I read all the comments and respond to the interesting ones. What's happening right now in the Baltic Sea is sending chills down the spines of European politicians. For the first time in years, the European Parliament is openly admitting what many have suspected. Their entire sanctions policy against Russia has suffered a devastating failure. Picture this: 14 packages of sanctions, thousands of pages of documents, grandiose declarations. And what's the result? We're shooting ourselves in the foot. These aren't my words. These are the frank admissions now coming from European parliamentarians. Most telling are the statements from Liberal Democrats, who were once the loudest voices calling for harsh measures. They're now the first to sound the alarm. The sanctions aren't working as planned. Moscow has adapted, while European economies are bearing serious losses. But here's where it gets truly interesting. What's being cooked up behind closed doors? According to the Financial Times, a revolutionary new plan is brewing within the European Parliament. And if you think this is just about tightening existing sanctions, you're in for a surprise. What these European strategists have devised is unprecedented. Imagine this scenario. A Russian oil tanker crossing the Baltic Sea is suddenly stopped. An armed team boards the vessel. What happens next? This isn't some fictional story. It's rapidly becoming reality. Why is this situation far more serious than it appears? The implications are staggering. We're looking at potential military confrontations in the Baltic Sea, a complete disruption of international maritime law, and possible responses that could reshape global trade routes. What specific risks does this precedent pose for maritime commerce? How might Russia respond to such a challenge? And why has the West chosen this precise moment for such a provocative move? These are the critical questions we need to address. Stay with me as we dive deep into these three crucial points that could affect not just international relations, but your daily life as well. The stakes have never been higher, and the consequences could be far-reaching. Let's dive deeper into this concerning development in international maritime relations. In the remaining segments, we'll explore Moscow's potential counter-strategies, analyze the broader implications for global trade routes, and reveal exclusive insights from maritime law experts. The stakes couldn't be higher. Could this Danish initiative trigger a fundamental reshaping of international shipping rules? The Danish government's move to establish stringent control over maritime traffic represents an unprecedented shift in international relations. By granting itself broad powers to inspect and potentially halt Russian oil tankers, Copenhagen is effectively attempting to position itself as a gatekeeper of Baltic Sea commerce. The concerning aspect isn't just the inspections themselves, but the deliberately vague criteria for intervention. A Russian vessel, fully compliant with international standards, could face detention based on subjective environmental concerns, a troublingly elastic justification. This development comes at a particularly telling moment. Previous attempts to restrict Russian energy exports through traditional economic measures have proven largely ineffective. Russia has demonstrated remarkable adaptability, establishing alternative trade routes and partnerships that have largely neutralized Western pressure attempts. The timing suggests a strategic pivot by Western nations from economic tools to direct physical control of maritime pathways. These facts won't reach the evening news. Stay ahead. Subscribe for direct, unfiltered updates. The Kremlin's response, articulated through Dmitry Peskov's characteristic blend of diplomatic finesse and unmistakable firmness, signals a new phase in this confrontation. This strategic standoff over maritime rights could have far-reaching implications for international trade law and sovereignty. Share your thoughts in the comments. What historical precedents come to mind when you think about attempts to control international waters? And how did those situations ultimately resolve? The Baltic Sea has become a focal point of international tension, highlighting the delicate balance between maritime rights and military posturing. Recent statements from the Kremlin's press secretary reveal Russia's increasingly assertive stance on protecting its maritime interests. Starting with diplomatic language about international law and peaceful sea usage, the message quickly evolved. The warning about Russia's readiness to pursue legal action through international courts was just the opening move. With that characteristic smile masking steel determination, the message became clear. Russia stands ready to defend its interests through all available means. While the language remained diplomatic, there was no ambiguity about the meaning. Any attempts at forceful pressure against Russia will meet with an appropriate response. This situation has already shown results. When Moscow equated Danish border vessels with pirate ships, Copenhagen quickly abandoned its plans to inspect Russian tankers. The retreat came with a curious reference to piracy concerns. Meanwhile, NATO continues its largest-ever exercises in the Baltic region, adding complexity to an already tense situation. Moscow emphasizes that while seas should remain spaces for cooperation rather than confrontation, any attempts to alter this status quo could have serious consequences. The economic dimension remains significant. Despite Western attempts at pressure, Russian economic resilience continues to grow. This raises questions about the effectiveness of current Western approaches and their sustainability. This situation serves as a reminder that maritime law and international relations require careful balance. When major powers are involved, even routine maritime procedures can quickly escalate into diplomatic incidents with military implications. The seas must remain spaces for cooperation rather than confrontation. However, recent events suggest we're sailing into increasingly turbulent waters. The question isn't just about maritime rights. It's about the broader architecture of international security and sovereign interests. Dear viewers, what's your perspective? Having witnessed how Western pressure strengthens rather than weakens Russia's position, share your thoughts on why certain politicians seem stuck in this approach. The Baltic Sea has become an arena of unprecedented military activity, marking a significant escalation in regional tensions. NATO's largest-ever exercise, Baltops 2025, showcases a massive demonstration of alliance capabilities that Russian officials have immediately characterized as provocative. Early Thursday morning, German corvettes Magdeburg and Braunschweig led the way, departing from Hoya Duna's base. They were joined by the French minesweeper Vulcan and Danish frigate Absalon. The star of this naval parade is the USS Mount Whitney, the U.S. 6th Fleet flagship, followed by USS Paul Ignatius. The scale is truly remarkable. 50 combat ships, 25 aircraft, and 9,000 military personnel from 7 nations. What's particularly noteworthy is the exercise scenario, which includes practicing blockade operations in the Baltic and Black Seas. More concerning are plans to simulate preventive strikes against Russian nuclear deterrence facilities and modeling operations involving the Kaliningrad region. Vice Admiral Anderson, commander of the U.S. 6th Fleet, emphasized the symbolic timing of these maneuvers, coinciding with NATO's 70th anniversary. However, EBC reports warn this could lead to serious tension escalation, especially since these NATO exercises overlap with scheduled Russian military drills. Experts highlight an unprecedented concentration of military forces in the region. This mirror-like buildup of military presence could lead to unpredictable consequences. What's particularly alarming is that even a minor incident in the current atmosphere could trigger a chain reaction of events. Western analysts stress the crucial importance of maintaining communication channels between military forces to prevent accidental escalation. The situation demands careful handling, as the Baltic region becomes increasingly militarized. The question naturally arises: are we witnessing a new phase of strategic positioning, or is this a dangerous game of military chess that could spiral out of control? Share your thoughts below. What personal experiences from past decades help you understand today's military tensions? Your perspective as someone who's witnessed similar historical moments could provide valuable insights for our younger viewers. Here's a 2,000-character script focusing on Baltic Sea tensions. The Baltic Sea is rapidly transforming from a commercial crossroads into a theater of military confrontation. Following recent geopolitical shifts involving the former Fraternal Republic, this region has gained unprecedented strategic importance. Admiral Tobias Abri emphasizes that NATO's Baltops 2025 exercises are far more than routine maneuvers. They're a clear message from the alliance. The West is deploying an impressive show of force, stretching from the Danish Straits to the Gulf of Gdansk. The program encompasses the full spectrum of modern naval warfare: amphibious operations, air defense, anti-submarine warfare, and mine clearance. Special emphasis is placed on protecting underwater communication infrastructure from so-called hybrid threats. For 2 weeks, NATO forces will practice coordinated operations at sea, in the air, and along the coastline. The latest unmanned systems, both surface and underwater, are being actively deployed. Even medical services are conducting casualty evacuation drills, a detail that hasn't gone unnoticed by analysts. Moscow unequivocally views these maneuvers as provocative. Deputy Foreign Minister Alexander Grushko spoke plainly. NATO is preparing for direct military confrontation with Russia, seeking total superiority across all theaters of operation. The Kremlin hasn't remained passive. On May 27th, Russia launched its own Baltic exercises in response. This military posturing is intensifying, with tension rising daily. The Baltic Sea risks transformation from a vital trading route into a potential flashpoint for conflict. What's particularly noteworthy is the scale and complexity of these exercises. NATO's demonstration showcases their ability to act as a unified front in any maritime operation. The alliance is deliberately raising the stakes in its confrontation with Russia. Such concentration of military power near Russian borders naturally raises serious concerns, especially against the backdrop of general regional escalation. Comment bite. Friends, what's your analysis of the current situation? Having lived through various historical periods, how do you compare today's Baltic tensions with past confrontations? Share your perspective. Your experience matters. В Балтийском море разворачивается масштабная демонстрация военной мощи, превращая некогда спокойный регион в арену геополитического противостояния. Россия отвечает на активность НАТО решительно и масштабно. Более 20 боевых кораблей, 25 единиц авиации и 3000 военнослужащих, включая элитные спецподразделения, участвуют в учениях. Беспрецедентным шагом стало размещение командного пункта НАТО в немецком Ростоке. Американское присутствие в штабе операции явно сигнализирует о растущих амбициях США в регионе. До 20 июня введены существенные ограничения морского движения, затрагивающие все классы судов. Западная коалиция демонстрирует внушительную армаду: фрегат «Бавария», корабль снабжения «Франкфурт на Майне», тральщик «Дательн», заправщик «Мазель», исследовательское судно «Штоллер-Грунт» и разведывательный корабль «Петриси Орион». Реакция местного населения Ростока неоднозначна. Одни горожане с интересом наблюдают за военными маневрами, другие активно протестуют против милитаризации региона. Лидер местных левых Хеннис Хербст, признавая потенциальные угрозы российским подводным коммуникациям и системам GPS, призывает искать дипломатические решения вместо наращивания военного присутствия. Ситуация отражает глубокий раскол в обществе между сторонниками жесткой линии и приверженцами диалога. Военные приготовления с обеих сторон создают опасный прецедент, способный привести к непредсказуемым последствиям. История показывает, что даже в самые сложные времена холодной войны находились возможности для диалога. Возможно, настало время вспомнить этот опыт. Comment bite. Друзья, давайте вспомним времена, когда отношения между Россией и Западом были конструктивными. Что, по-вашему, помогало тогда находить общий язык? Поделитесь своими воспоминаниями и мыслями о том, как можно возродить диалог в современных условиях. Балтийское море становится эпицентром нового геополитического противостояния. Давайте разберем ситуацию без лишних эмоций, опираясь на факты. Европейские политики, признав провал санкционной политики, переходят к более агрессивным мерам. Датская инициатива по досмотру российских торговых судов – яркий тому пример. Но давайте задумаемся, насколько законны подобные действия с точки зрения международного морского права? Россия четко обозначила свою позицию. Любые попытки ограничить свободу торгового судоходства встретят адекватный ответ. Военно-морской флот усилил присутствие в регионе, демонстрируя готовность защищать национальные интересы всеми доступными средствами. НАТО проводит масштабные учения «Балтопс-2025» параллельно с российскими военными маневрами. Совпадение? Вряд ли. Такое наложение военной активности создает риски непреднамеренной эскалации. Важно отметить, Несмотря на растущую напряженность, дипломатические каналы остаются открытыми. Отдельные европейские политики призывают к поиску компромиссов. Однако их голоса тонут в общем хоре воинственной риторики. Ситуация отражает глубинный конфликт между Россией и западными странами по вопросам региональной безопасности и торговли. Балтика превращается в арену, где проверяется не только военная мощь, но и экономическая устойчивость. Непреднамеренный инцидент может спровоцировать серьезную эскалацию. История знает немало примеров, когда локальные конфликты перерастали в масштабные противостояния. Уважаемые зрители, как по-вашему, насколько оправдана жесткая позиция России в защите своих экономических интересов в Балтийском регионе? Поделитесь своим мнением в комментариях, особенно интересно услышать тех, кто лично сталкивался с морской торговлей в этом регионе.